I wasn't just seated away from the head table at my only son's wedding. They sat me in the kitchen, next to the swinging door and the ice machine, while my son toasted the woman who had quietly taken my place. They laughed. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I went home, poured a cup of tea, and pulled up the files they thought I'd never check. The vote they faked, the papers they forged. And then I made one quiet call to the man my late husband once warned me about, his biggest competitor, now my silent partner. Her name is off the door, his title, stripped, and me. I didn't just take back my seat, I restructured the entire table. Before we get into it, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're watching from. This one's for every woman who was ever made to feel invisible and decided to show up anyway. I never thought I'd be telling this story, but here I am. Garrett is my only son. I raised him mostly on my own after his father passed. We weren't rich, but I made sure he had everything he needed. Private school, piano lessons, even braces we could barely afford. Every late night shift, every skipped vacation, it was all for him. And when he got accepted into college, I cried the happiest tears of my life. Fast forward to his wedding day. I thought it would be one of those full circle moments. You know, the kind where you look back and think, it was all worth it. Instead, I found myself sitting in a folding chair, next to an industrial-sized ice machine, in the kitchen of a wedding venue, just outside Charleston. The card on my seat didn't say mother of the groom. It didn't even say Denise Rowland. It said Denise, in handwriting that wasn't Garrett's. No floral print. No gold trim, just a plain folded piece of paper, slid beside a stack of cocktail napkins. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I kept looking around, waiting for someone to pop in and say, "Oops, wrong seat. Let's get you out there where you belong." But no one came. The kitchen door swung back and forth every few minutes, waitstaff walking through like I was part of the scenery. One of them even asked me if I was the temp caterer they were waiting on. I just smiled and said, "No, I'm the groom's mother." He blinked. "Oh," he said, then walked away without a word. Through the small round window in the swinging door, I could see the reception unfolding like a movie. White flowers, gold accents, music softly playing. Ainsley, the bride, looked lovely. I won't lie. Her dress sparkled under the lights as she posed with her parents, who were seated right up front. Garrett stood beside her, laughing, raising a glass during toasts. I leaned in to hear something, anything. But the sound of clinking dishes and the kitchen staff's chatter drowned it all out. Then someone clinked their glass and said loudly, "To the new queen of the family." People cheered. Someone else shouted, "Where's the old one?" Laughter followed. And then, I swear to you, I heard Ainsley say, "She's keeping the ice cold in the kitchen." The laughter got louder. Even Garrett chuckled. That one, that laugh from my son, that hurt. I sat there, perfectly still, my hands folded in my lap. My breath was calm, but something in me went quiet in a way I hadn't felt before. I didn't cry. I didn't ask for anyone to come get me. I just sat there until the music changed, and I knew dinner had started. They hadn't even bothered to send me a plate. The kitchen had extra rolls and salad, and one of the younger girls on staff offered me a Sprite. I thanked her. She was the only one all evening who looked me in the eye. By the time they brought out the cake, I was done. I stood up, walked past the servers, out the back hallway, and left without saying goodbye. No one stopped me. No one noticed. I got in my car and drove the 20 minutes home in silence. I didn't even turn on the radio. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat there for a minute, hands still on the steering wheel, staring at my porch light. You know when you realize something has shifted, like the ground under your feet isn't quite what it used to be? That's what it felt like. Inside, I slipped out of my shoes, changed into my robe, and put the kettle on. I always keep a little tin of chamomile on the counter for nights when I can't sleep. Tonight, I wasn't sure if it was sleep I needed or something stronger. The tea steamed gently as I sat at the kitchen table. The real one, not the folding kind. The one where I'd fed Garrett his first bite of mashed carrots, where we'd done homework and talked about college and life and dreams. I opened my laptop. I didn't really know what I was looking for at first. Maybe I just needed to feel like I still had some control over something. Then I remembered the company, the one I helped build with my late husband before he passed, a freight and logistics business, small at first, just the two of us, and one truck. But over the years, we grew. Garrett joined later, mostly in marketing and client outreach. Ainsley came in last year as a strategic consultant, whatever that meant. I hadn't been involved in the daily operations for a while, but I still had access to certain files, voting records, and shareholder dashboards. I pulled them up out of habit. And that's when I saw something that made the air in the room feel heavier. A board vote, one that showed my approval. Except I'd never voted. I hadn't even been told there was a vote. I stared at the screen. My name, my digital signature, placed neatly in the approved column of a major company restructuring. It hit me then. The wedding wasn't just about seating. It was a signal. They were moving on without me, in the family, in the business, in everything. And I wasn't meant to notice until it was too late. I took a slow sip of tea, then I opened a second tab and typed in the name of someone I hadn't spoken to in over 25 years, Victor Nye, my husband's fiercest competitor. And suddenly, I wasn't tired anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was upset, though I probably should have been, but because my mind wouldn't quit running. Something about the way my name had shown up on that company document didn't sit right. It wasn't just rude or inconsiderate. It was deliberate. After Garrett's father, Raymond, passed, I kept the business going. It wasn't easy. I didn't have a fancy degree or a team of consultants. I had a binder full of notes, 2 honest drivers, and a stubborn streak. Over time, we expanded from 3 clients to dozens. Garrett joined fresh out of college. He had bright ideas and a decent head for networking, and I was proud to bring him in. But I never gave up my share. I held on to 28%. That was my piece of the pie, and I held it close, like the house deed or my wedding band. I clicked deeper into the dashboard. The platform wasn't hard to use. I'd logged into it for years, checking updates, looking over quarterly reports, signing off on budgets when needed. But this time, I found something new. Hidden in the meeting notes section, there it was. A file dated 2 months ago. Board meeting. Vote on new operational structure. I clicked it open. The room spun a little as I read. Unanimous approval by board members for new voting structure and resource consolidation. Denise Rowland, approved. I read it again and again. I never approved anything. I hadn't even been invited to a board meeting in almost a year. There was even a fake note beside my name. Verbal approval, via phone, confirmed and recorded. I knew that was a lie. No one called me. No one even asked. My heart started pounding, not in fear, but in that slow, hot way you feel when someone insults your intelligence to your face. I went back into the files and looked at who had submitted the meeting notes. Ainsley. Of course, she'd added herself as Chief Strategic Officer last summer. Said it was just to help out while Garrett focused on growth. I'd nodded politely back then, thinking she'd get bored and move on. But now I saw the truth. She wasn't helping. She was taking over. I sat back in my chair, fingers resting lightly on the edge of the keyboard. They were trying to push me out, quietly, smoothly, like I'd never mattered. I opened my contacts list and scrolled. Most of the names blurred together, old drivers and vendors I hadn't talked to in years, but one stood out. Rick Morales, my accountant of over a decade. I hit call. He picked up on the second ring. Denise, everything okay? I need you to look at something, I said. There's been a vote. One I never attended. Can you pull the documents? Already on it, he replied, his tone shifting from casual to serious. Give me 10 minutes. While I waited, I opened my desk drawer and stared at the company folder I kept in there. My name was still printed clearly on the original Articles of Incorporation. I hadn't touched that paper in years, but suddenly it felt like armor. Rick called back in 7 minutes. They filed the change last month, he said. And yes, your name's on the vote, digitally signed, but I never signed anything. I know, the signature was copy-pasted. The metadata doesn't even line up. So what does this mean? It means they're trying to phase you out. If that structure holds, your voting power is meaningless. Even with your 28%, they can block anything you try to do. And Ainsley. She's listed on every new file. She's coordinating the changes. Garrett's name is there too, but she's clearly running the show. I didn't speak right away. Rick was quiet on the line, probably waiting for me to yell or cry, but I didn't do either. Instead, I stood up, walked over to the bookshelf, and pulled down a faded green address book. There was a name inside I hadn't looked at in years. Victor Nye, my late husband's biggest competitor back in the day. The man he argued about over dinner and warned me never to trust. The man who offered to buy our company once. Raymond laughed in his face. Victor had always been sharp, too ambitious for his own good, maybe. But he was fair, and he played long games. I found his number right where I left it. Back then, I couldn't imagine ever using it. Now, it felt like the only card I had left to play. Rick cleared his throat on the phone. "You want me to prepare anything?" "No," I said quietly. "Not yet." After we hung up, I picked up the address book again and ran my finger over the name. I didn't know if the number still worked. I didn't know if Victor would even take my call, but something told me he would. I looked out the window into the backyard, where Garrett once played catch with his dad, where we'd set up a slip and slide every summer, where Ainsley posed for photos at her bridal shower just 6 months ago. It didn't feel like my home anymore, not really. I closed the laptop. I had a call to make. I called Victor Nye the next morning, just after sunrise. I figured if he still had the same number, after all these years, he'd probably be awake by 6. The phone rang 3 times before I heard his voice. Lower and a little slower than I remembered, but still sharp. "Denise Rowland, that's a name I haven't heard in a while," he said. "I don't want to waste your time," I replied. "I need to talk, in person." A pause, then, "Church Street Cafe. 1 o'clock, ask for the table in the back." He hung up without asking why. I got dressed carefully that day. Slacks, crisp white blouse, no jewelry, except for my wedding band, which I hadn't taken off in over 20 years. I almost did that morning, but something told me to keep it on, for strength. I arrived 10 minutes early and waited at the little table, tucked away near the back wall. The cafe was quiet. Brick walls, old wooden floors, soft jazz humming from overhead speakers. It used to be a bookstore back when Raymond and I lived on the other side of town. Victor walked in right on time, slower than I remembered, but upright. His suit was neat, charcoal gray, with a pocket square folded just so. Same silver hair, same piercing eyes. He spotted me and gave a small nod before pulling out the chair across from mine. "You look the same," he said. "You don't," I replied, and he laughed. We didn't order food, just tea. He took his black. I added a little lemon to mine, like I always did. "I didn't expect to hear from you," he said, stirring slowly. "Last time I saw you, your husband was threatening to sue me over a parking contract. He had a gift for drama," I said. "And you?" "I have a gift for survival." He sat back and crossed his arms. "So why now?" I reached into my purse and slid a small folder across the table. Inside were printouts of the forged board votes, a copy of the new business structure, and highlighted sections where my name had been used without permission. Victor opened the folder, put on a pair of reading glasses, and read in silence. His eyes moved slowly but deliberately, scanning every line. After a few minutes, he looked up. "Damn," he muttered. "They didn't even try to cover their tracks." "No," I said, "because they thought I wouldn't look." He leaned back. "I always said Raymond underestimated you. He wasn't the only one." Victor studied me for a moment, then closed the folder and folded his hands on top. "So what do you want, Denise?" I took a slow sip of tea before answering. "I want to sell my stake, eventually." "Eventually, but not today, not publicly, not loudly. I want this to fall apart from the inside out, slowly." without them realizing it's happening. I want them scrambling while thinking everything's still fine. Victor raised an eyebrow. You don't want revenge, you want collapse. I nodded. They tried to cut me out of my own life. The wedding was just the public version. The business, my business, is where they're doing the real damage. He tapped the folder gently with one finger. This gives me leverage, he said. I could use this to start a buyout play today. Number, not yet, I said firmly. If you go too fast, they'll fight. I don't want a courtroom. I want silence. I want whispers. I want the cracks to spread before they even notice the walls shifting. He stared at me, unreadable. You're asking for something surgical. Yes. You're asking me to play the long game. You're good at those, I said. He smiled, just a little. Why come to me, he asked, after everything with your husband? Because you're the only one who knows how to play this without emotion. And because you've wanted a way into Roland and Crane for 30 years, I'm giving it to you. He picked up his tea and took a slow drink. What do you want in return? I want consulting power, quiet, nothing public, my name in the fine print. I want to see the rebuild, but not be the face of it. No press, no interviews, just control. He leaned forward slightly, nodding. Fair, you'll get access. You'll get your stakes value, and you'll get your silence. And you'll get what you've always wanted, I added. He laughed again. That's true. We sat there in silence for a moment, the kind of quiet that hangs between two people who don't need to fill space with words. Finally, he held out his hand. I looked at it for a moment, then shook it once, firm and steady. No more calls, I said. Everything goes through encrypted message. We don't know each other, and we don't meet again until it's done. Victor gave a short nod, and just like that, the meeting was over. I stepped out into the Charleston air, warm and sticky with early summer heat, but I felt cool inside, clear. I hadn't just started something, I'd ended something too. Not with yelling, not with a scene, with tea, with proof, and with the man my husband once warned me never to trust. Funny how time changes everything. After that meeting with Victor, I knew the next move had to be silence. Not a warning, not a word, just silence. So I disappeared. I packed a small bag, just clothes, my tablet, and the old address book I now carried like a weapon. Then I drove out to Mount Pleasant to stay with my cousin, Luann. She and I hadn't been especially close over the years, but when I called and asked if I could lay low for a bit, she didn't ask a single question, just said, "The spare room's clean. Sheets are fresh. Come on." That's family, right there. Luann's place sat near the marsh, just off a quiet road where the only noise came from birds and the occasional boat engine in the distance. Peaceful, out of the way, nobody would come looking there. I left my car parked 3 streets over in front of an empty rental, just to be safe. Disabled the GPS on my phone, turned off notifications, and stuffed it in a drawer. I didn't want anyone to reach me, not Garrett, not Ainsley, not even Rick, my accountant. Luann didn't pry. She handed me a glass of iced tea when I arrived, gave me a hug, and said, "Whatever storm's coming, you handle it your way." Every morning, I woke early, read the paper, and walked around her backyard, barefoot with my coffee. It felt good, letting the quiet stretch out. But I wasn't idle. I checked the company's internal platforms, using Luann's laptop. I still had access through my legacy shareholder credentials. They hadn't shut me out, yet. The first few days, everything looked normal. Then the little cracks started showing. The Monday after I vanished, Garrett missed a meeting with a potential vendor. 2 board members requested clarification on the new voting structure. Ainsley responded with one of her polished, clipped emails, signing it on behalf of the board. On the 3rd day, a senior account manager resigned. No explanation. Then someone leaked a redacted memo about shareholder absence, affecting leadership visibility. I didn't respond to anything, didn't call, didn't text. I wanted the silence to stretch, to wrap around them like fog. They were starting to feel it. Garrett sent a text, "Hey Mom, haven't heard from you. Just checking in. Hope you're okay." I didn't reply. 2 days later, a voicemail. Hi, we noticed a couple of login irregularities. Might be a glitch. Anyway, we're about to enter a new quarter and just wanted to touch base. No rush, but maybe give me a call when you get a chance. Still, I said nothing. Luann brought me fresh fruit and kept the TV off. She knew I needed stillness, not distraction. At night, we'd sit on her porch and shell peas, or drink sweet tea like we were kids again visiting Grandma's house. I felt myself slowly untangling, not from pain, exactly, but from the noise, the assumptions, the way Garrett's family acted like I was furniture, old, in the way, easy to move or ignore. On day 10, Victor sent me a secure message. Shifts are starting. 2 partners are sniffing around for backup deals. No mention of your name yet. They're still trying to look steady. I replied with 3 words. Let them sweat. After that, I stayed off the grid entirely. No news, no checking the portal. Just long walks, clean air, and space to think. Then, on day 15, Luann came into the guest room with her phone in her hand and a look on her face I hadn't seen since we were teenagers, sneaking into the movies. You might want to hear this, she said, tapping the screen and putting it on speaker. Garrett. Hey Lou, I was just wondering if you've heard from Mom. She's not answering anything, and Ainsley's getting concerned. We have investors asking questions, and, there's just a lot going on. If she's around, can you tell her we'd really love to touch base? Just tell her. He sounded unsure, off balance, maybe even scared. Luann muted the call when it ended. I didn't say anything right away. I just sipped my coffee and stared at the trees swaying outside the window. They're not worried about you, Luann finally said. They're worried about what you'll do. I nodded. Exactly. I wasn't trying to hurt them. Not yet. I was giving them space to realize what they'd done. Or rather, what they'd undone. By removing the person who'd been holding the whole thing together from the shadows. Silence can be louder than a scream if you use it right. And I was just getting started. I'd been quiet long enough. The silence had served its purpose. Garrett and Ainsley were rattled. The board had questions. The staff didn't know who was running the show anymore. It was time to let the next step fall into place. Without me having to lift a finger, I sent Victor one short message. Start the whispers. He didn't reply, but I knew he got it. Victor didn't do messy or loud. He knew how to plant a rumor like a gardener planting seeds, quietly, carefully, in just the right soil. By the end of that week, the whispers had reached the outer circles. People in the local business scene started hearing that I was in talks with a private buyer. No name was mentioned, just that I wasn't gone after all, and that I was taking my 28% somewhere else. Now that number might not sound like much to some, but in a family-run company like Roland and Crane Freight, it's everything. That 28% held just enough weight to shift power. It meant leverage. It meant I could swing a vote, or block one. Investors noticed. By midweek, 2 silent partners had pulled out of a pending logistics contract. No press release, no fuss, just gone. One of them was someone who'd known Raymond from way back, the kind who only moves when something smells wrong. Luann read the update to me off her iPad while we sat on the porch. They backed out of the Denver expansion, she said, eyes wide. That's the 3rd deal in 3 days. I sipped my lemonade and nodded. They're unraveling, I said, and I haven't even touched them. That afternoon, Ainsley scrambled to put together a last-minute board call. A closed-door meeting labeled Leadership Stability Discussion. Victor somehow got the summary slides. He sent me screenshots. The title slide read, Internal Transition Strategy. Translation, Full-blown panic. That same night, Garrett called. Again. This time, his voice was soft, almost like the boy I used to rock to sleep when he was sick. Hey Mom, I know things have been weird. I'm sorry about the wedding stuff. That was on the venue, not us. He paused like he expected me to jump in. I didn't. Anyway, there's a lot going on right now, and Ainsley and I were hoping we could all sit down and talk. Just get everything out in the open. We don't want things to feel tense." Then he added, as if it made everything better, "We love you. We just want to move forward." I sat in Luann's guest room, listening to his voice come through my headphones. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just let it play, then pressed save and tucked it into a folder on my laptop titled Receipts, because I didn't need apologies. I needed results. This wasn't about being loved. It was about being respected. The next morning, I brewed coffee and opened up a clean notebook. Flipping past my earlier pages of notes and documents, I started writing out my actual plan. Not the warm-up, the real thing. Victor and I had a basic agreement already, but this part needed detail, timing, messaging, steps. I wasn't just giving him my shares, I was using them. And when I handed them over, it would be when Garrett and Ainsley had already lost the very thing they thought they owned: control. I wanted Garrett to wake up one morning, look around the boardroom, and wonder when it all slipped through his fingers. I wanted Ainsley to open her inbox and feel it in her chest when the investors pulled out, one by one, until her big plans became a string of "we regret to inform you" emails. And most of all, I wanted them to understand the difference between power that's handed to you and power that's earned. They'd confused the two for too long. By the end of that week, a small local paper ran a short finance column about unconfirmed shifts in equity control at Rowland and Crane. The source? Anonymous. But Victor had a hand in it, no doubt. The company hadn't responded. They were probably too busy trying to figure out how to spin it. Luann looked at me over dinner and said, "You sure you don't want to call Garrett? Just once?" "No," I said. "If he wanted to talk, he would have come clean a long time ago. Right now, he's only calling because he's nervous, and I'm not going to save him from the mess he helped make." She didn't argue, just passed me the cornbread. And with that, I turned the page in my notebook, took a deep breath, and started writing the next move. Because the foundation was shaking now, and I was just getting ready to pull the brick that would bring the whole thing down. I waited exactly 23 days. That's how long it took for the cracks to become fractures. Investors pulling out, quiet exits, rumors swirling like leaves in the wind. I'd stayed silent, watched it all happen from a safe distance, and now it was time. I was going home. Not for memories, not for some big emotional confrontation, just for what was mine. I was going home. Not for memories, not for some big emotional confrontation, just for what was mine. Luann stood at the doorway as I packed up my things. "You sure you don't want me to come with you?" she asked. "No," I said, zipping my bag. "This part I do alone." The drive back into Charleston was smooth. No traffic, just me and a clear head. I pulled up to the house, my house, around 9:45 in the morning. The garden looked too neat. The porch swing had been replaced, and in the window there was a wreath that wasn't mine, lavender and twine, Ainsley's style all over it. I let myself in, using the key they forgot to deactivate, the one I had re-verified through county records under my name. The door clicked open, smooth as butter. Inside, it felt like a showroom. Cream rugs, beige walls, fresh eucalyptus in a vase I didn't recognize. Not a single photo of Raymond or me in sight. No trace of the life we'd built. Just Ainsley's brand of perfection. Cold, curated, and hollow. I didn't touch anything. I just walked to the kitchen table, pulled out a legal envelope from my bag, and laid it down. Eviction papers, not just for the house, for the office space they had tried to claim under my name. The trust Garrett used to funnel company funds for home office renovation. It was under my signature, or so they thought. But I'd had the documents pulled, reviewed, and reversed. All legal, all airtight. About an hour later, the front door opened. I heard heels on hardwood. Ainsley. She walked in carrying a coffee and a laptop bag. The second she saw me sitting there, she froze like someone had poured cold water down her back. "Denise?" she said, blinking. "What are you doing here?" "I live here," I replied calmly. Still do. We thought you were staying with family. I was. And now I'm home. She looked at the envelope on the table, and her face changed, confused, then tight. What is this? Formal notice, I said, sliding it toward her. Effective immediately. You can't be serious, she snapped. You don't have the right. I do, I said, reaching into my bag again. This time, I pulled out a certified copy of the property title, the shareholder agreement, and the trust documents. I tapped each one. This says I do. Her mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, I saw her unsure of herself. Just then, Garrett walked in, still in gym clothes, holding a smoothie, earbuds in. He froze mid-step when he saw me. Mom? I looked at him without smiling. Garrett. What's going on? He asked, walking toward the table. She's trying to evict us, Ainsley said, still holding the unopened envelope. No, I said. I'm not trying. It's already done. Garrett looked at me with wide eyes. Mom, please, we can talk about this. I tried, I said. You ignored me. Then you laughed while I sat in a kitchen during your wedding. You signed off on fake votes. You helped her shut me out of the business your father and I built. He started to speak, but I raised my hand. No more excuses, I said. You locked me out of my own life. Remember? His face dropped. I saw the weight hit him all at once. Not just guilt, regret. Let's be reasonable, he said quietly. You don't have to do it this way. I'm being more reasonable than you were, I said. I didn't change the locks. I didn't forge your name. I didn't erase you from your own story. Ainsley crossed her arms, trying to sound composed. This won't end well for anyone. I turned to her. Oh, I think it's ending exactly as it should. I stood, gathered the rest of my papers, and tucked them into my bag. You have 72 hours. After that, the sheriff handles it. Garrett stepped forward. Please, don't do this. You did this, I said without anger. I'm just finishing what you started. Then I walked past both of them, out the front door, and into the warm Charleston sun. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like justice. They took my seat at the wedding. They tried to take my name from the company. They forgot I had roots deeper than any of their schemes. And now, I was back in my own home, not to reclaim the past, but to remind them exactly who they'd underestimated. 2 days after I walked out of that house, I signed the papers. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't emotional. I sat at my kitchen table, and took my time reading every word of the final agreement from Victor's firm. The transfer of my 28% stake was clean and quiet, just the way we planned it. No headlines, no press conference, just a digital signature and a wire transfer that moved more than just money. It shifted control. Victor didn't waste a second. The very next morning, a new memo hit the boardroom at Rowland and Crane Freight. It came from Victor's office. Strategic reorganization effective immediately. Changes to voting rights, executive leadership, and department oversight to follow. Ainsley's name was nowhere in it. She had been removed from her strategic consultant role without ceremony. Her access to internal files was revoked. Her card didn't work at the downtown office anymore. I heard from a former assistant that she tried to storm into a morning meeting with 2 board members, only to be asked to wait in the hallway. She never got past the door. Garrett wasn't fired. Not exactly. He was offered a new title, Senior Advisory Liaison. Fancy words for you're not in charge anymore. He didn't protest, not publicly. Anyway, I think by then he knew. This wasn't a phase or a bluff. The power he thought he had was borrowed, and I'd just called in the loan. When I showed up at the office a week later, no one expected me. I didn't wear a blazer or bring a briefcase, just a navy blouse, pressed slacks, and a calm expression. The receptionist looked up, confused at first. Then she straightened in her chair. Mrs. Rowland, she said, do you have an appointment? Number Y have history. She nodded and buzzed me in. I walked the same hallway I'd helped design years ago. The paint was newer, the furniture sleeker, but the bones were still mine. I knew every inch of that space. The creaky floor tile near the copier, the draft that came from the corner office vent. I wasn't there to make a scene. I was there to rebuild. Victor met me in the conference room with a folder already prepared. "It's all yours," he said. "Not the title, but the plan. The board approved your consulting authority this morning." "I don't need a title," I said, taking the folder. "Good. You won't like this one anyway." He smirked. "You're officially Director of Strategic Recovery. Sounds like a rehab center." "Maybe it is." We shook hands, and that was that. My first move. I brought back two people who should have never left in the first place. One was Alan Peters. He'd run our operations department for 12 years before retiring early. When Ainsley came in with her flashy efficiency upgrades, he wasn't even 60. The man could run freight blindfolded, with one hand tied behind his back. The other was Ruth Santee. Ruth had started as a temp and worked her way up to head of vendor relations. She knew every driver by name, every route by heart. She was let go during Ainsley's streamlining phase. I called them both, same day, told them the company was under new leadership, asked if they'd consider returning, not as favors, but with full pay, new titles, and real authority. Alan's voice cracked when he said yes. Ruth cried. We didn't make big announcements, just walked into the building together the following Monday and got to work. The office felt different right away, like someone had opened the windows after a long winter. Quiet nods, soft greetings. Even the ones who didn't know me personally seemed to sense the shift. I wasn't trying to be queen of anything. I didn't want a parking space with my name on it. I just wanted the place to feel like it used to. Grounded, honest, strong. We reviewed contracts, canceled wasteful partnerships, and reopened talks with vendors Ainsley had burned bridges with. I sat in on meetings, took notes, and made recommendations. Always firm, never loud. Within 2 weeks, morale had already lifted. Garrett didn't speak to me directly during those first few days. I'd see him in the hall, head down, moving quickly. I let him be. He needed space to sit with what he'd allowed. He'd traded legacy for convenience. Now he was watching the people he pushed out walk back in like they'd never left. And honestly, that was the best outcome. Not revenge, not humiliation, just reality setting back in. We weren't done, not by a long shot. There were still messes to clean up, deals to untangle, and trust to rebuild. But for the first time in a long time, I could walk into that office, sit at the table, and feel like I was exactly where I belonged. Not as a ghost from the past, not as a forgotten shareholder, but as the one who had helped build the thing from the ground up, and who had just brought it back from the edge, all without raising my voice, just showing up. About a month after the dust settled at the company, I got an invitation in the mail. It was from my granddaughter, Lily, handwritten in pink marker, with uneven letters, and a drawing of a lopsided cake. Right at the top it said, "Grandma, please come to my birthday. I saved you a seat." I stared at that line for a long time. Simple, sweet, no politics, no guilt, just love. The party was being held at Garrett's house. Well, technically my old house, before I moved into a smaller place closer to the water. I hadn't been back since I handed him that eviction notice, but this time, it felt different. This wasn't about business, it was about Lily. So I said yes. That Saturday, I drove over in a soft blue dress and flats. Nothing fancy, I didn't want to make an entrance. I just wanted to be there. When I pulled up, there were balloons tied to the mailbox, and kids running through the yard with face paint and paper crowns. I smiled without meaning to. It felt light, real. Garrett was on the porch, hanging streamers across the top rail. He looked up when he saw me and paused. No speech, no awkward smile, just a quiet nod. I nodded back. He came down the steps, wiped his hands on his jeans, and opened the gate for me. "Glad you came," he said softly. "I came for Lily," I said. But I didn't say it unkindly. He nodded again, like he understood. There were long tables set up in the backyard, covered in purple tablecloths, and tiny vases filled with wildflowers. Kids were busy decorating cupcakes, and the adults stood around in clumps, sipping lemonade and chatting. That's when I saw it. A seat at the end of the main table. Folded card with my name. Written in bold black marker. Grandma Denise. No nickname. No abbreviation. No mistake. Garrett walked over and pulled the chair out for me. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. I sat down and looked around. People smiled, nodded. A few waved. No tension. No whispers. And no Ainsley. She was nowhere to be seen. I didn't ask why. I didn't need to. The absence said enough. Lily came bouncing over in a sparkly dress with a unicorn headband on. She threw her arms around me like we'd never missed a single day. "Grandma," she shouted, beaming. "You made it." "I wouldn't miss it," I said, holding her tight. When it was time for cake, she tugged my hand. "Will you help me cut it?" I smiled. "Of course." Garrett stood beside us as we cut the first slice together. Her little hands on the handle, mine wrapped gently over hers. Everyone clapped and cheered, but I didn't hear much. I was watching her smile. Pure, proud, unfiltered joy. That slice of cake wasn't just dessert. It was a moment. The kind that sticks in your chest and reminds you why you keep going. After cake, while the kids tore into presents, Garrett sat beside me. He didn't speak right away, just watched Lily giggle over a glittery backpack and a set of stickers. Then he said, "She talks about you a lot." I looked at him. "She should," I said. "I've always been here." He nodded slowly. "I know." He pulled something from his pocket, a folded photo. One of him as a kid, standing next to me in front of our first delivery truck. His hair sticking up, my hand resting on his shoulder. "Found this last week," he said. Made me realize I forgot who built all this. I didn't say anything, because sometimes the best thing to say is nothing at all. We sat there for a while, just listening to the laughter, the music, the soft hum of normal life. No business talk, no damage control, just a birthday party in a backyard with creaky chairs and melting frosting. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't loud, but it was mine. My seat, my name, my hand holding the knife to cut the cake. Not because someone gave it to me out of obligation, because someone saved it for me, out of love. That's the thing about power. The real kind doesn't come from a title or a building or even a company. It comes from being remembered, from being seen. And at that table, on that warm spring afternoon, I was seen again, truly, not as the woman who walked away, but as the one who had always, quietly, built the table in the first place. Looking back now, it feels like a different life. The wedding, the kitchen seat, the quiet betrayal dressed up in soft words and fake smiles. I used to think that kind of hurt would break me, that being pushed aside by the people I loved most would leave a scar I couldn't cover. But it didn't break me, it built me, again. Not in the same way I built a company, or raised a child, or held a marriage together. This time, I rebuilt myself, piece by piece, without anyone cheering me on. And that's the part nobody tells you about when you get older. You become invisible in plain sight. People stop asking what you think. They assume you've slowed down, that you're done. But I wasn't done. Not then. Not now. The silence I chose wasn't weakness. It was strategy. I knew if I shouted, they'd call me bitter. If I fought in the open, they'd paint me dramatic. So I chose a different route. I let them underestimate me. And while they celebrated at a table they thought I didn't belong at, I went and built my own. I don't gloat when I think about how things turned out. Ainsley is gone from the business. Garrett is rebuilding. Not just his role, but himself. And the company, it's back on steady feet, with people who actually know what they're doing. But most importantly, I'm not a ghost in my own legacy anymore. I'm here, visible, present, and not because I fought my way in with fists swinging, but because I walked in through the front door with paperwork in one hand and a full sense of self in the other. I don't need people to clap for me. I don't need trophies or awards. What I needed, what I chose, was peace. Real peace. The kind you earn when you stop explaining yourself. When you stop begging for the seat you already built. There are moments now when I sit in the quiet and smile to myself. Not because everything is perfect, but because I remember who I am. And I like her. She's steady. She's calm. She's not afraid to disappear for a while if it means coming back stronger. Lily still talks about that birthday party like it was the best day of her life. She tells her friends that Grandma cuts the cake just right. And every time she says my name out loud, not like a footnote, but like a foundation, I feel something settle in me. That seat at the table, that's what mattered. Not because it was made of wood or because it had a name card, but because it was saved, for me, by choice, with love. And if you've ever been pushed aside, if you've ever felt like the room moved on without you, if you've ever watched people raise a glass and leave your name out of the toast, then I want to ask you, have you ever been pushed aside in your own story? What would it take to reclaim your seat at the table? Would you do it loudly? Or like me, quiet, steady, and undeniable? Think about that, let it sit. And when you're ready, remind yourself, you still matter. You've always mattered. And your seat? It's still there. Maybe dusty, maybe forgotten, but waiting. Go get it. And before you go, if this story touched you even just a little, I'd be grateful if you do 3 small things, like this video. It tells us to keep making more stories like this one. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded of their worth. Subscribe, so you never miss a moment that might just help you take your power back. And of course, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Have you ever been underestimated? Did you reclaim your story? Or maybe you're just about to.